Okay, we're recording. We would like for you just to kind of say who you are, your name, what district you're running in, how long you've lived in Memphis, and why you want to run for Memphis City Council.
All right. Well, first of all, my name is Jim Sdoia. I'm the candidate with the unusual last name that nobody can pronounce or spell. I am the candidate for Memphis City Council, Super District 9, Position 2. I decided to go into the race as a result of the issues with funding for the city schools. With the Memphis City Council not producing the funding that they were required to, even after numerous lawsuits, it became apparent to me that some of the folks on the City Council perhaps were not thinking about the future of the city the way they should be. And I felt that with my background and focus on trying to improve education in the city, that I could make a difference.
Okay. What kind of training and practical experience has prepared you to run for Memphis City Council?
Well, I have over 35 years of business experience. I have lived in many different parts of the country. My wife and I raised 4 children. In the process of raising these 4 children in different locations, we've been in public schools, private schools, parochial schools, and international schools. So we've had a wide range of experience with educational systems of a variety of different types. We have a interesting situation here in this city with the school systems that need to be improved. I've taken my time and talent and tried to do something about that by starting the Memphis Urban Debate League. One of the things that I found out in my career that spanned these 35 years and the success I had was due to one of the key things that I learned in high school, and that was debating. I had a very successful career in sales and marketing, and most of that was a result of the techniques and research techniques that I learned in the debate program at my old high school. Because I knew that that was something that would carry through with other kids as well throughout the year, my first thought, by the way, was to just coach a debate team. And so I started looking around for which high schools had debate teams, and then I found out that there were no debate teams. So then my next thought was, okay, how do we start debate teams? And I found an organization in Chicago called the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, whose focus is on bringing debate programs back to urban school districts. And working together with them and with the Memphis City School Boards, we were able to get that accomplished. It was hard work, but the results have been outstanding. And I think that more and more of those types of citizen-initiated programs can really help the school system if they're given an opportunity to participate and to focus on what they want to do for the schools. One of the questions you asked me earlier, which I didn't answer, and I apologize for that, was I've been in the Memphis area for 14 years now. Moved here in 1997. I say the Memphis area because when I first moved here, I was not in the city. I was annexed into the city at a later date, but I think that was about 7 or 8 years ago. I can't recall exactly, but when they did the annexation, the first annexation of Cordova, I was included in that first annexation. Of course, when that happened, by the way, I'm sure for those who lived out that area, it seemed as though for sale signs sprouted up on lawns like dandelions. We looked at that and said, well, why are you doing that? Why are you putting for sale signs up? And the folks I talked to said that it was the school system that made them want to move. And I said, well, if that's the case, then we're not moving. We're going to do something to improve the school system. So that gives you a little background on that aspect.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
This is a finance question. Do you feel the city should immediately pay $57 million the court say it is owed to MCS? Why or why not?
Well, I think the city absolutely needs to pay what is owed. The issue for the city would obviously be, and I've looked over the budgets, and obviously the issue with the city's budget would be the timing of the payments. I think the payment plan that was worked out at the last city school board meeting is realistic and appropriate, and I would think that the City Council should adopt and adhere to that payment plan. It does take into account the historical payments that have been made over the years and under the maintenance of effort that the school has been provided by the city. So I think from that standpoint it's fair. I think the problem we have to deal with is the fact that when the city first decided to withhold the funds, they didn't put them aside in a contingency account and instead spent the money, which was not a financially responsible thing to do. So they do have to find a way to raise the money. Now, they could take some of it from the reserve funds. I do understand the need to keep a certain amount in the reserve funds there in order to maintain the bond rating for the city, because that's going to be important for the city to be able to continue to do its capital improvements as it goes along as well. So there's a balancing act there that has to be done, but I think if the school adheres to, or the council adheres to the payment plan proposed by the Memphis City School System, I think that's reasonable, fair, and I think that in the response to that, they'll be able to maintain that program and get the monies there on time.
Okay. How in your role as a city council member would you make sure that monies and or resources in the city are being used more strategically to assist students who are facing frequent relocations and often homelessness?
Yeah, that is an issue that our school system has because of the fact that many, given the job situation, the high unemployment rate here in the city, that folks are moving too frequently, and students then don't have an opportunity to realistically maintain a continuing education program at a single school. They're often moved from school to school. Now, I think the school system, to their credit, has done some things that I think will work very well in helping that. The new student assessment program that they developed, the online one that follows the student, so that when a student moves from one school to the next, the teacher doesn't have to wait, several weeks for paperwork to catch up. They immediately know where that student was in their class, what they were covering, where their deficiencies were, and what to focus on. So that should help mitigate some of that situation with the student transfers. Homelessness, I know there's been some discussion about putting together a boarding school concept for students who are homeless. I think there's a significant amount of merit to that. I think it needs to be examined and looked at carefully, and depending on the current financial situation, perhaps part of that funding could come from the city, but I'm not sure what the cost of a program of that type would be. I haven't examined that in detail, so I wouldn't be able to answer it, but I think there's some merit in that type of a situation to try to help students who are in a homeless situation, providing, of course, that the parents are willing to allow the students to board at a school like that. That the parents have to have the final say in it. And some parents would be perhaps reticent of relinquishing that child. Many times the parents want to keep the child with them, and I can understand that. Having been a parent of 4 kids, it's something that you'd have to really examine carefully and then determine what's in the best interest of the child.
Can you give us an example in your life that shows your commitment to performing, if you were the Memphis City Council member, your role in a manner that meets the highest ethical standards?
That's an interesting issue because I remember going through the questionnaire, looking at the online at the survey question, and that one came up, and I'm trying to think. I said to myself, well, what would be a way for me to explain, my level of ethics and integrity? And the example I gave in that survey question is the one I'll repeat here, and that is when I was the general manager, senior vice president, general manager of our Asia Pacific region for the software company I was working for at that time. I was based in Singapore. There was a bank in Indonesia that we were negotiating or trying to do a deal with for a large multi-million-dollar software package. The individual who was to make the final recommendation to the board explained to us that we would most likely be able to get this deal done if there was a way we could help him pay for his son's education in the United States.